Hello, my name is Doug Heileman. I'm a consultant in the sustainability field, and I've been working in the field for over 40 years. I began my career in facility operations and environmental compliance, moved to corporate compliance, have done management consulting. I worked at a Big Four accounting firm for 6 years, just in the middle of Sarbanes-Oxley. I started my own consultancy 15 years ago. I've worked on internal audit, financial audit, and I spent 3 years on the Volkswagen Monitor team. I also happen to be an author of a very important document, which is why I'm recording this today. This document was released by COSO on March the 30th of 2023. It's called Achieving Effective Internal Control over Sustainability Reporting. I'm one of 6 authors, the only non-CPA. I'm an engineer and MBA, and the only sustainability specialist, working with a very distinguished group of colleagues whom you can find in the document itself. This is supplemental guidance published by COSO. It's free. There is a link to it on the homepage of my website, DouglasHeileman.com. And it's right on the homepage of the COSO website, coso.org. Now, most people in the accounting community are very familiar with COSO, and people who don't work in the accounting community may not have heard of it. So for those of you who have not heard of COSO and you're not familiar with internal controls, I would just say that COSO is probably the most important organization you've never heard of. COSO stands for the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations of the Treadway Commission. And that's a mouthful, but it includes several organizations, including the AICPA, the Institute of Internal Auditors, the Institute of Management Accountants, Financial Executives International, essentially all professional associations who deal with accounting and financial reporting. The COSO internal controls framework has been widely adopted by companies as the go-to framework to design and implement internal controls over financial reporting, ICFR. But the COSO framework is intended to be topic neutral. And with the growth in demand and the growth in practice of sustainability reporting, there's really no reason this couldn't be tailored to internal controls over sustainability reporting. And that's exactly what we set out to do in creating this document. It was nearly a year in the making, and since it was released the end of March, the uptake has been nothing short of fantastic, especially within the Big Four, within the accounting community, the enterprise risk management community, and internal audit. So as my role, I have a distinctive resume, a distinctive career, being an engineer working with accounting firms on financial audits, internal audits in the heyday of Sarbanes-Oxley. And so that allowed me to provide a distinctive perspective in the writing of this document. And I'd like to share some perspectives on how users should read and use this document, both for those who know internal controls and those who do not. Now, in pulling together data and information for sustainability reporting, it's often accounting, finance, someone in a cross-functional team is in charge of pulling this together. And as reporting and disclosures become more prominent to the capital markets, accounting firms, in-house accountants, and external auditors are taking a greater profile in looking at the rigor that comes from that is involved in putting data and information together. Is it complete? Is it accurate? Can it be supported? And has it been managed in a way to avoid and to prevent manipulation? So accountants and those preparing these reports are getting data and information from many groups that are not familiar with the COSO internal controls framework. Data that goes into sustainability reporting comes from human resources, from environmental, from procurement, from quality, real estate, sales, legal, all different departments, and they may be used to ISO. Some of these groups may be accustomed to GRI or to the Global Compact or to industry standards, but they just don't know COSO. This supplemental guidance is intended to bridge that gap. So, having said that, I'd like to offer some perspectives on how to read it and how to use it. This is all of 114 pages long, and don't let that scare you because it's written into bite-sized chunks and it's a very logically oriented document. There are 3 major sections to the document. The first section is introduction and background. The second section goes through all the components, all the principles of the COSO internal controls integrated framework. And the third section is wrap up and recommendations. So let me unpack those one at a time. The first section of introductions covers what is COSO. What is the internal controls framework? What are internal controls? What is sustainability or ESG? What is sustainable business information? It really sets the table for everything that is to follow. If you're already familiar with sustainability, it's still worth a read to see how the accountants and financial executives view this and to establish a common language for communications between those who know internal controls and those who do not. I'll jump to the last section, the wrap-up, and that sums up everything that's in the middle around the components and principles, and it ties things together and offers guidance and suggestions and a top 10 list for things that everyone should do in order to improve the validity and the accuracy and the decision usefulness of sustainable business information. Now let's get to that middle section where the document marches through 17 principles that come under 5 different components of COSO. If you are familiar with COSO, no presentation would be complete without seeing the beloved COSO cube. If you are not familiar with COSO, it's worth getting used to this because you will see it early and often. It sets forth the components, and within the components there are 17 principles for effective internal controls. Within each of the principles, there are points of focus that are a little more granular. Principles can be difficult to really kind of understand because they're so general, they're subject to so much interpretation. Points of focus really start to bring it home on what exactly the principles are talking about. After that are several perspectives, several content, reference to regulations, quotes from people in the industry who have very mature programs in this area, some hints, some quotes that really establish the link between the internal controls framework and sustainability reporting. So what I have encouraged readers to do for accountants and people who know the internal controls framework, in this middle section, start every principle and read from the top down. The principles, the points of focus will be very familiar to you already because of what you do on financial reporting. For anyone who is more familiar with sustainability or environmental or safety or supply chain risk management or anything that isn't financial reporting, for each of those principles, start at the bottom and read up. Because when you start reading the perspectives and how companies and how organizations can get better data, more complete data, how you apply accounting principles to collecting data and narrative information, to go into sustainability reporting, and to be ready for review by internal audit, by external audit, by the financial auditors, by investors, by analysts. How do you design and implement systems to put data and information together to be robust enough to pass those tests? And so company management can be confident in what the company publishes, and they can be confident in signing anything they need to sign. So start from the bottom up, and you'll be able to relate to a lot of those discussion points. And then when you get to the principles and points of focus, you will say, well, of course that makes sense. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that if you're on the sustainability side or the functional leadership side, when you go to talk to a CFO, to a chief audit executive, a chief accounting officer, you really have to be prepared to talk their language, because they are collecting data and information for reporting to capital markets and probably a wide variety of other stakeholders. They will not learn your language. They are accustomed to putting things together using their language, using their terms, using their frameworks. And this document is a terrific way for you to breeze through 114 pages, a couple of modules at a time. They're only 3, 4, 5 pages a piece. Just read it in bite-sized chunks and learn to talk to the suits, as I call them. Learn their language. The document is also very well suited for a book club, internal book club, an externally supported workshop to go through it. It's a great book club for an internal cross-functional team for sustainability reporting. I facilitated many of those workshops. I'm happy to facilitate more workshops, but it's easy enough to read. You can do this on your own. So I hope that's helpful. I hope you will download the website. I hope we'll provide some good comments and some tips on how to use it. I would love to hear from you in terms of how this has helped you on your sustainability reporting journey. My experience is that when people really get a hold of this, that bridge for communications can help to get resources, can help raise the profile, can help obtain funding for special projects that are going to reduce risk and improve performance. It all begins with being on the same page, to talk the same language. One of my favorite sayings that I made up is that if you're going to be on the same page, it helps to have a page. So here are 114 of them right here, and I hope you will enjoy reading them and you will put it to very good use. Thank you.